This video is for business leaders who need to manage stress during awkward moments in business to maximize the effectiveness of their team. So how do you as a leader feel during socially awkward situations at work? How do you deal with them? This video will give you some strategies for being a leader when it's hardest to do so. Watch to the end for bonus material on rules for creating a psychologically safe space and a recommended video on how compassion can boost your success. So in my experience, appropriate, compassionate, radical honesty and transparency are usually the best. And I would add to that, that immediate would be a key thing too. As immediately as you can address an issue, the less chance it has to grow and fester into more than it needs to be. So it's actually rare that ignoring or immediately moving past an awkward moment is the right thing to do. There are situations where that's the case, but we're not going to address those today. And they are the minority, not the majority. So your intent, how you express yourself, and how you respond to the situation are what will set the tone. If your intent is good, and good by that I mean that it is not in any way against the interests of the team or the individual members and so on, and especially if you express that, that's really helpful. Letting them know my goal here is, or my intent here is, can be very, very important and very helpful. And how you respond, that is how you feel. This is the case in the classroom and in the boardroom, that the individuals in a room will pick up on the tone of the leader, whether that's a teacher or a business leader, and their feeling, whether it's explicitly expressed or expressed non-verbally. How you feel yourself really matters in this situation because people will pick up on that. I'm not talking about psychic stuff. I'm talking about subcommunication. If you look at this picture, you probably immediately get a certain sense from it. That's not psychic. That's just having consciousness of what's going on in the picture by the body language, right? So all of that stuff is really important, but what it really comes down to is something called psychological safety. If you're not familiar with it, we're going to define that in a second, specifically from the source where the best research that I know of has gone on regarding this concept. And that is Google, and that is Google. They basically found that the most important variable of an effective team is psychological safety. So Google's research stated the following. This is a direct quote. Psychological safety refers to an individual's perception of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk, or a belief that that a team is safe for risk-taking in the face of being seen as ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive. Continuing with the quote, in a team with high psychological safety, teammates feel safe to take risks around their team members. They feel confident that no one on the team will embarrass or punish anyone else for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea. It's really well said. That's why I'm quoting it rather than rewriting it. It's excellent as it is. Google wrote it, or one of the members of Google wrote it, so it's probably, it's really good. That's all I can say about it. So basically, to get the most out of yourself and your team, you have to put yourself out there, trusting that people will treat you compassionately and that you will do the same for them. And that whole part is part of the psychological safety. Now, don't confuse this with the tearful therapy session. It's just as likely when you're in a situation of psychological safety, from the definition we've just discussed, to create short-term conflict, hurt feelings, or even tears in some cases. As it's just as likely to do those as it is to generate resolutions and better solutions in the short term. In the longer term, the whole point is to get better results, for somebody to be able to say, well, your idea would work if it were not for. well, you're not considering XYZ. I understand that you have invested a lot of effort into this, but there's some serious problems with it. Things like that have to be said. If you want the best solutions, you know, Google did this research or came to this conclusion for a reason. They looked at all their teams over a long period of time and found that this was the number one variable that increased success and effectiveness in their team, was that the team had psychological safety. So it's basically this, and that is that psychological safety is essentially the antithesis of groupthink, and that people have to be radically honest, yet polite and kind. This isn't about getting a chance to get a dig at somebody. If that's the case, it's not psychologically safe. Right? The idea is not to be punishing people, not to make them feel bad for an unnecessary reason. And when you do have to say something that's going to be hard for them to hear, or that's going to be hard for you to hear, it's done in the most gentle way that's possible, while still being completely honest and transparent about the important facts of the situation. So whenever possible, I'm going to use this term. I think it's actually pretty good. Whenever possible, announcing the elephant in the room is a great way to disempower its potential for negative impact. And the sooner the better. I mentioned that earlier in the immediacy. So if something seems awkward now and it's not discussed immediately, what happens is people go away from the team and they either discuss it in them within themselves or among themselves, that is, within their own minds, and they start changing the facts. That's how people really work. So essentially, it comes down to this. If you address it immediately or as soon as possible, it doesn't have time to grow into something worse or more mythical in people's minds. Whether you discuss it with another person or you think about it yourself, the whole mountain, making a mountain out of a molehill analogy, or whatever you want to call it, comes to mind. So most of that will disappear once the whole idea is brought to light. So this situation here can be a situation where somebody just says, okay, this is something that's been a problem and we have to address it. It could be an individual, it could be an idea, it could be a dynamic between two people. It doesn't matter what it is, but by bringing it up in a way that's appropriate, that's psychologically safe, say, okay, we need to resolve this. Even if it means moving people off of the team, that's a last resort. But the idea is, by being radically honest and having this kind of trust, means you can get stuff done. This means you're not waiting for the highest ranking person in the room to speak first. That is the least effective team. By doing that kind of thing, you get into that whole nonsense groupthink thing. So as a leader, be willing to go first, make mistakes, and laugh at them. That is, laugh at your mistakes with the group. I get an opportunity to do this quite often when I'm teaching English and that I have to speak Japanese. In fact, today, I meant to say play. This was a mixed group from 9 to 19 years old. I meant to say play, which is asobu. And instead I said tobu, because they both have a similar ending. Asobu means to play, but tobu means to fly. So everybody laughed. And I laughed with them. I made an obvious mistake. I realized it, but I didn't get upset. This is an important point. So as the leader, you should be the first one to put your guts, your heart on the table to show that you really mean it when it's necessary. And when you make a mistake, laughing at yourself, not taking yourself seriously. Humor in general is a super powerful thing, especially when things get stressful. You have to calibrate this. You have to be able to read the room. If someone gets upset and you didn't mean to do that, and you probably didn't, and you shouldn't, you should apologize immediately, publicly, and immediately and publicly in front of everybody. It was like, sorry, I didn't mean that the way it sounded, or I'm sorry that upset you. That wasn't my intent. And if you don't mean it, they will pick up on it. So mean it or don't say it. Okay, so where are we here? So it really makes a big difference that if you are prepared to laugh at your own mistakes, that will show them that it's safe for everyone else to do the same. As the leader, it should be okay for them to laugh at you, not in a malevolent way, not in a spiteful way, but when something happens and it's a mistake, because we all make mistakes. So laughing at our mistakes in front of our reports, letting them know that it's totally okay for them to laugh with you at those mistakes, not at you, at those mistakes, is totally okay. And in fact, will set a tone that makes it a lot safer for them. So when they feel safe, that your heart is in the right place, when they feel safe and your heart is in the right place, you can say almost anything to anyone so long as they feel safe and know your intent is benevolent. I couldn't think of a specific example of this, but this has happened to me in classes in particular, where high-ranking individuals, C-suite individuals, the top-ranking person in the room is being told something in front of all of his staff of junior stature that he's made a mistake. But doing it in such a way, basically saying, oh, it's this. Okay, no, please try again. That might sound trivial. It might sound like, oh my God, you can't do that. Well, you can if you do it right. They don't feel attacked, and the room doesn't feel like you're ridiculing them, and they don't feel uncomfortable. How you react and how you respond to everything in a situation like that is what probably matters by far the most. That's the trick of it, and that's the thing that's going to take you some practice. So welcome to the bonus content, and this is about building some of the psychological safety. So to build a psychologically safe place, build a set of ground rules with your team. That is, you can have a set of sort of rules that you put together, or a set of ground rules for how to behave in this team, in this situation. But it's even better if you can get the team to buy into those rules by having them help develop the rules. Pretty common team building trick or team building technique, whatever you want to call it. So this is just an example because I have the most experience in the English classroom. I'm going to use that as the most ready example, and that is in my classes, the rules are really, really simple. And this goes for all ages and all ranks and all skill levels. Essentially, everyone must participate. I don't care if they suck. And what I mean by suck is if their English is the worst I have ever heard. I only care that they participate at a level that is appropriate and challenging for them. Mistakes don't matter at all. Only trying matters. Obviously, this is an English classroom, and because of the cultural differences between the West and Japan in particular, there's very much a shame component, especially if a higher ranking person does something poorly in front of a lower ranking person. But I've done this many times in many classes of, like I said, every variety you can think of, and been very successful right up to C-suite corporate level doing this, because I create this atmosphere with these rules, and I show them that they don't just apply to them, they apply to me too. So the only thing that's really unacceptable, or the only things that are unacceptable, are not trying, not participating, or being mean. So don't be a jerk. You have to try, no matter how bad your result is, you have to try. Now, obviously in your team, some of this will shift. Joking and humor is always welcome, just not at anyone's expense. If it's accidentally at someone's expense, you can skirt around the edges, but you have to do it carefully and in a calibrated way. Mostly make fun of you. If you're going to make fun of at anybody's expense, make fun of yourself at your own expense, or not at all, which is even better. So this may not be exactly the same list or structure for your team, but it'll be pretty damn close. Obviously, you expect your engineers or your executives to have a level of competence. That's why they're in the room. But if you want a psychologically safe team, you want them to have very similar rules. And a dumb idea is a great idea. It's just got to get out there. And if everybody eventually agrees, including the person who did it or not, that it's not a great idea, then that's fine. That would come under the category of mistakes are totally okay. Bad ideas are still in that same category, totally okay. You can have as many bad ideas as you want. If you bring them up and you really think they're a good idea, turns up there, so what? Let's move on to the next one. It's no big deal unless you, especially as a leader, make it a big deal. So don't. So I've used these same rules for C-suite executives and toddlers, with exception that toddlers aren't required to try if they're too shy or crying for some reason. That's about the only difference between the C-suite executives and the toddlers. And I'm laughing, but it's because it's true, not because I'm joking about that. And finally, the recommended video for today is about having compassion for both others and yourself, and how that can increase your success and your determination to continue to strive for success. I'll put the link right there. That would be a video called Progress, Not Perfection, and a bonus video, or bonus video, which will be about something interesting related to this video, but not so much. It's by a researcher named Kelly McGonigal, and it's called How to Make Stress Your Friend. This is a short, condensed version of her TED Talk on this topic, because stress was one of the first words I used in this video. I think it's really shocking and very useful for people to learn this more or less unknown understanding of how to manage stress and how to, in the cases that she argues, completely eliminate the negative effect of stress. So I'll put that in the description for you to check out yourself. It's only about 3 minutes. So please share this video with leaders who want to maximize their team's effectiveness. This has been Crush It Club 280, How to Manage Stress and Awkward Moments in Business. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.